Scott Roecker joins us now to talk more about Russia's assault on Ukraine's power plant and the facility itself. He's the Deputy Vice President of Nuclear Material Security at the Nuclear Threat Initiative. Scott, thanks for joining us. Your organization is very familiar with this power plant. Can you explain your level of involvement in monitoring this plant and how it works?
Yeah, thanks for having me today. So just to frame it, this is not just the biggest nuclear reactor in all of Ukraine, but all of Europe. They've got 6 nuclear reactors at the site, which requires a lot of nuclear materials. And to be clear, we're not talking about the same types of nuclear materials that are used in a nuclear weapon, where you would have a mushroom cloud and mass destruction. But what the risk is really is about a radioactive release should there be any damage to any of those 6 nuclear reactors.
And so, of course, there have been a lot of parallels in the media made between what happened at Chernobyl and what could potentially happen here. But this is a very different plant, correct? This is a much more modern plant. Can you give us some indication of why we shouldn't be worried about what happened at Chernobyl happening here?
Yeah, no, this is a different situation. It's much larger. And one of the biggest differences between Chernobyl and this situation is that there's an invasion that is happening in the country. We can all remember the scenes from the tsunami in Japan when it hit the Fukushima nuclear power plant, and they had several meltdowns of the reactor. Responding to a crisis in a time when there's a lot of other things that are happening, such as an active firefight, is very difficult. So in the case of Chernobyl, they were able to respond quickly. And in this situation, I'm not sure it'd be the same.
It's worrisome, obviously. Scott, U.S. energy officials say the radiation monitoring systems are fully functional at the site right now, and there have been no changes in radiation levels. That's obviously good news. But should that change, what would happen next?
Yeah, so that would be worrying if things would change at the site. And what I'm really looking at now is the other nuclear power reactors in Ukraine, right? We've seen that Russia is targeting these facilities and attacking them. There are 4 nuclear facilities across Ukraine. So what I'm really looking at right now are these other nuclear reactors and whether or not there are troop movements in that area or other attacks.
Scott, on a scale of 1 to 10, how worried are you about what's going on in this particular nuclear reactor? Because you seem to sound a little more concerned than a lot of, professionals who've come out today saying, look, this reactor has a lot of safeguards in place. It's a very different situation than Chernobyl. It's a more modern nuclear plant. And they seem to be saying this morning, despite everybody's fears last night, that people should not be worried. But you sound a little bit more concerned. So could you give us a little more insight as to why that is?
Yeah, this is truly an unprecedented moment. This is the first time that there's been an all-out war in a country with a significant nuclear power infrastructure. And in an attack like we saw last night, there's a real risk of radiological release from a ruptured nuclear power plant. And so there's a lot of concern around it. And I'll go back to another point that I made. All reports are that the operations are currently happening under duress. It's not clear if there are backups that are able to come in. And operating a nuclear reactor is not a simple thing to do. So there's a lot to be concerned about at this moment. And I'd like to underscore the important role that the International Atomic Energy Agency plays in this scenario in terms of supporting the safe and secure operation of nuclear power plants. I really welcome the statement from Director General Rafael Grossi saying he's willing to go to Chernobyl even in this time of crisis. And so we really need to rely on international organizations that can help in this critical time.
It's an excellent point, Scott. Thanks so much for your insight in a topic that really, continues to frighten the global community, really, and one that we certainly will be watching and hopefully no advances anywhere. Scott Roecker, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you for having me.